I thought the shoulder exercise was supposed to make my shoulder feel better. I saw this on Instagram.
You're doing it all wrong. Give us your time and we're gonna show you the 4 most common mistakes that we see with shoulder rehab. Welcome back, Dr. Craig Lindell here from Team Prehab, and today we have the man, the myth, and the model, Dr. Arash Magsudi.
What's going on?
And today he's going to be helping me show you what are the 4 most common mistakes that we see with shoulder rehab exercises. We're going to go over the most commonly prescribed shoulder rehab exercises that we, along with many others, give to their patients and clients. But even though these exercises are so common and so popular, these are actually the most messed up, screwed up exercises, and actually pretty easy to screw up if you don't get it right from the get-go. So the first exercise that we're going to dive into is the side-lying shoulder external rotation. There are articles upon articles that tell us why this exercise is so good for shoulder rehab, and that's because it works our rotator cuff muscles, specifically our infraspinatus and our teres minor, some of these muscles on the back here. However, it's really important to remember that with the rotator cuff, they only move the shoulder joint, the humerus, because they're attached to the scapula. In order for the rotator cuff muscles to work, you have to anchor one of those bones. So if Arash here is going through shoulder external rotation, that means that his shoulder blade better not move so that one bone is anchored and the other bone is moving, and then we know our rotator cuff is going to be working really, really hard. However, what we see with this exercise all the time, Arash, do a bad job. So as you come up, ready? Even rotate back a little bit, but let this shoulder blade move as you also move your shoulder. So instead of his shoulder blade staying back, as the I almost called it a kettlebell, as the dumbbell comes down, his shoulder blade is moving and coming along for the ride with his shoulder. So this will happen with fatigue. Instead of keeping this shoulder blade back and retracted, you can see this medial border of the scapula, that'll actually move as the shoulder moves, the hand moves, or this will even tilt and the scapula will internally rotate. So it's really important to cue people. I like to say, hey, bring this back here. And then if you're trying to coach someone through it, it's like, don't let me move your shoulder blade. So ready? Keep that back there. Don't let me move that shoulder blade. I'm just helping him here at his hip because I'm pulling a lot. Now go ahead and do the same exercise. This is probably rep 40, so you're getting pretty tired. So number 1, keep the shoulder blade back. Keep it retracted. Don't let that shoulder blade come this way. The second most common mistake that we see with shoulder rehab is going to be poor dynamic glenohumeral joint stability, aka not keeping the golf ball on the tee. And this is very common, especially once we do rotation exercises with our elbow at shoulder height. So Arash here, we got him set up with the bands now. It's just easier to do these exercises with bands. And also you can just keep that tension the entire time. Once we get the elbow at shoulder height, that's just our personal preference. So Arash, take us through doing shoulder external rotation, and we're at 90 degrees of shoulder abduction. So Arash is doing a pretty good job right now. He's keeping that golf ball on the tee. He's also keeping his shoulder blade stacked in the right position that we want it, and we talked about that in the first exercise. So now Arash, show us what some of our patients used to do, what people that, yeah, this is starting to look really bad. Arash is doing a great job with this. So now what's happening? I don't even know what's happening. This looks pretty ugly. But Arash, what he's doing is now he's just letting his shoulder blade go for the ride. And then also, ready, pull that on up, get there. What Arash is actually doing is as he goes to rotate, he's not keeping that golf ball on the tee. His shoulder is actually shooting forward. It's a small motion, you know, you're not gonna see a ton of motion as like he's moving his arm, but as he's rotating his hand back, he's letting his shoulder blade shoot forward. And what's the problem with that? Well, that can actually stress the anterior capsule, that can actually stress your biceps tendon, and you're just not keeping that golf ball on the tee. You're not working your rotator cuff muscles as good as you could be, and then also you're just promoting bad habits. So this is a great drill to do. And actually you can do this with a mirror. You can be getting feedback, just watching yourself. Can you keep the golf ball in the tee as you rotate? And at the same time, you're keeping your shoulder blade still, keeping your shoulder blade exactly where you need to be. So if you focus on these two things, your shoulder rehab exercises are going to do a lot better. We're gonna cover mistakes 3 and 4 with the same movement. We're gonna cover the scaption exercise, probably one of the most common shoulder rehab exercises, and that's because it targets another rotator cuff muscle, the supraspinatus on top. So scaption, if you bring your arms out to the side, you come about 30 degrees forward, you're going to be in the scapular plane, and that's how we're gonna focus on this exercise. A common mistake people will do is they will go too heavy. And you shouldn't go too heavy because Arash, I gave him 15-pound dumbbells here. And what I want you to do is I want you to go out and do that, slowly lower down. Arash is a pretty strong guy, so he's able to do this correctly. I'm not gonna make him do too many reps. But Arash, now show a few bad reps and we're gonna talk about what's happening from different camera angles. So from the side here, as you can tell, when Arash is coming down, his shoulder blades are just tilting forward. So he's losing control of scapular positioning because his low traps and his mid traps are not doing their job, keeping his shoulder blade like this relative to the camera. Everything is dumping forward, that's messing with the positioning. His shoulders may or may not feel good. From this angle, you'll notice, Arash, if you do just a couple more sets, that inferior angle of the scapula, it's just lifting right off the thorax, and his shoulder blade is tilting forward. So Arash, now if you grab the lighter dumbbells, which I know you're pretty stoked about doing right now, show us how to do this exercise correctly. So you'll see from this angle, Arash is able to keep those shoulder blades back. He's able to keep it lined up relatively with the thorax, and those muscles are working overtime, especially as he lowers down. So that's mistake number 3. Now let's talk about mistake number 4. Arash is going up pretty high with this exercise, which is great, that's okay. Sometimes in rehab, we'll limit people just to like this motion, shoulder height, because sometimes this arc of motion can be painful. However, when you start going higher, you have to let your shoulder blades go with it. So Arash, perform the exercise correctly, let those shoulder blades go for the ride, and now show us where, if you're just trying to keep your shoulder blades down and back, but then lift your arms up. It looks weird, it looks funny. It looks like you're trying to exercise with little T-Rex arms. Even though Arash's nickname is Rex, we're not gonna promote this. So once you get to about this point, you really wanna be promoting that scapular upward rotation. And Arash, really show us, really exaggerate that. And what we wanna see is we wanna see this shoulder blade come around. We wanna see it come forward and slowly come back down. And a good cue for this is reach away and forward. It's almost like upward and diagonal. And then you're gonna feel the muscles through here wrapping around your shoulder blades, working and helping out. And then same thing on the way down, you still don't forget about keeping that shoulder blade in the right position. Thanks for tuning in for another episode with us. We really hope that these tips and tricks help you with your shoulder rehab. Again, it doesn't take anything super fancy or too crazy. You just have to do the basics correctly. And as you learned today, the basics aren't that basic to perform. But Arash here, he crushed it. He did an awesome job. You now know the 4 most common mistakes with shoulder rehab. If you're looking for more advice, check out our shoulder program. We have over 4 months of programming to help you out and way more tips and tricks, but we can't do all that in a short YouTube video. So give this a thumbs up, comment, tell us what you liked about it, what you don't like. How about the new spot? How about the backdrop? How about the new gym flooring? The gym equipment keeps coming. I got Mike working out in the background right now. We're not gonna show you that stuff yet because it's still rolling in, but let us know what else you wanna see. Until next time, see you on Tuesday.